welcome back to The Fifth Star, a podcast where we are both trying to find our next 5-star movie.
And today we are reviewing The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Yep. And if we give it 5 stars, this podcast will go extinct.
So will this be really our last episode? We shall see.
All right, so The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the 4th movie of the reboot, right? This movie series has been going on for a long time, but it's essentially about a ape from a little community that gets raided, and then along the way, he discovers a human. Supposedly, all humans at this point have lost their ability to speak.
Yeah, and this does take place many generations, it says, after the last 3 sets, or the set of the last 3 of the
I
reboot.
looked it up, and it's supposed to be 300 years after.
It's a pretty big time jump.
Yeah.
And the protagonist, his family, or his village, essentially gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
And so...
raided.
Yeah, and so the kind of main premise is him having to go and try to rescue them.
Yeah.
So.
Kind of. There's a lot more that happens.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we've each written down our our ratings that we gave it secretly on the other side of this whiteboard.
Yep.
And we are now going to guess what each other gave it. So I'm going to guess that you gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars.
I was going to guess you gave it a 3.5.
Okay, so we both gave the same guess. 3.5. And what we're going to do is we're going to reveal the actual ratings after we give our initial thoughts on the movie, and then we will go into the spoiler section of our review.
Yes.
So, what did you think of The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes?
It honestly did surprise me. I think I went into it thinking it was going to be like the King Kong Skull Island movie or something, whereas like just a bit cheesy and like very heavy on the CGI. So I've only seen is that that's the first one? Dawn of the Planet of the Apes?
Rise is first.
Rise is first?
Yeah.
Okay. I've only seen Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Oh my gosh, wait. You watched this without having seen the second and third one?
Yes. But I think that makes... Okay, I think that's going to be interesting.
It is going to be interesting.
This is going to make the conversation interesting because as someone who has very little context, I think I'll have a different take from you who has all the context.
Yes. I watched the original, or the 3 before the reboots.
Yes.
And I was remembering this when I was looking back at it. The first one, which is Rise of the Planet of the Apes, was directed by Rupert Wyatt or something like that. And then the next 2 were Matt Reeves.
Right.
So those 2,
And did you watch the reboot? The 2001 one?
I did see that way back in the day.
So you've seen all of them?
Well, but I've not seen the originals.
Okay.
Yeah, like the 70s ones and stuff like that. Which I was like listening to a review of those recently, and I'm kind of intrigued. So I do want to go back and watch it. Maybe if there's another...
I thought you had at least seen the very first one.
I don't think I have. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, it's so popular that I'm sure I've seen clips of it.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen clips of it, but I've not watched the whole thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
But now I think I'm going to add it to my list because I am kind of going through old movies right now.
Yeah.
And I'm in the 60s, early 60s. And so I think soon I'll be up to the 70s. So I might just have added like 10 more movies
oh my gosh.
Or maybe it's like 5 more. But there are a lot of them.
I just can't take the costumes. Like,
it's
from
too
the original. Weird. It's too weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, I think this new Kingdom one is part of a new trilogy. That's probably coming.
Basically were setting some up.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting, and we'll get into that in the spoiler section. But okay, so you'd only seen Rise.
Yeah.
And then you went into this.
Right. So I had the context for like how things happened, kind of.
Yeah.
And then I had like, I mean, I knew who Caesar was because like he's in the first one and everything. But I thought the movie actually did a really good job of catching me up to speed without bogging me down with exposition.
Yeah.
Like, they were really good about that. Even just like with the little text at the beginning, very briefly kind of explaining the situation, but then just showed me the world. And I think there was only one scene where I was a little bit like, okay, this feels like an exposition dump. But it was okay because it kind of needed to happen.
Yeah. So how did it compare to what you remembered of Rise? Did you like Rise when it came out?
I remember I liked Rise, but I also remember being creeped out by it. Like, the concept is kind of creepy. A virus that, like, makes humans dumb or, like, makes humans regress a little. Like, that was kind of spooky, I remember. And I watched it, I think, in high school, like, around the time it came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved Rise. It was just such a refreshing reboot to a franchise that I didn't really care about. I hadn't seen the originals. I saw the Tim Burton, remake that was pretty bad. It was not good from what I remember even watching it back then, and then I'm sure hasn't aged well if I watch it again. So when Rise came out, it was like, whoa, this is awesome. Like, this is great. Yeah, this is awesome. It's great. It was gonna reboot like this whole franchise, and then followed by Dawn and War, which also were very good. I did not rewatch any of them before I watched Kingdom, but I did watch a recap video just to kind of refresh a little bit. And then it was like, oh yeah, I remember these kinds of things happening and stuff like that. I don't know that I loved all those movies equally, but
which was your favorite out of those three?
It's hard to say. I would say the one I liked the least was War.
Okay.
Yeah, the latest one.
Which is the most, yeah.
Yeah. And but I remember loving Rise just because it was so, it was just like introducing us to a whole new world. But then Dawn also was very good. So I probably like those equally, I'm guessing.
Okay.
Yeah, I was really nervous going into this one.
Me too. I was ready to be like, this is going to be a bad movie.
Yeah, because it's a different director.
Yeah.
And Caesar's not in it. So I'm like, this is set up for failure. This is like, they're just cash grab. Let's just, and right now, so many blockbusters are all about like
reboots and sequels.
Yeah, like, let's just rehash things that already have like, capital with people, like IP and all this kind of stuff. So I was like, oh man, this is gonna probably stink.
Yeah.
And I was also pleasantly surprised.
I know.
Yeah. I was
it was like good storytelling.
Yeah, it was. And I was very, very glad that I actually liked this protagonist, the Noah.
Yeah, Noah was very easy to like.
Yes. He was different from Caesar for sure, but he looks similar to Caesar.
Yeah.
Like in some moments.
That's true.
And so I thought that was a smart call. Like they gave a little familiarity, but he's a very different character because he's a very young kind of ape. He's very naive in the beginning. So, starts off with this whole thing about him and his friends like having this kind of initiation, rite of passage thing. Like they have to go steal an eagle egg, right? And they have all these like rules set by their elders, and so
I thought it was cool though that it was very much like a respectful ritual, even though they were like stealing eggs.
Yeah,
they viewed it as like this is like our way of life and our way of like being a community.
Yeah,
like. Yeah.
Did it give you kind of like Native American vibes of, oh yeah, we kill the buffalo and eat the buffalo, but we honor it, through...
I guess so.
So the whole...
There's a lot of things you could compare it to.
Yeah. So the whole like, you have to leave at least one egg, so that it can continue the progression.
Did you like how lawful good he was?
He was like, very lawful.
The law.
You're right. Which... we'll talk about spoilers, but it kind of sets up and pays off later.
It does. It really does.
So I think, the rules that are set by the community, by the elders, by his dad, he's the son of like the chief elder, and they've been insulated, right? Like they stay in their little oasis, which is, many generations after where, Caesar had brought,
Yeah.
the surviving apes from the end of the War of the Planet of the Apes. And so they've just been kind of isolated, and they're still in that bubble. And it all kind of kicks off as they kind of get exposed to a human that enters. So yeah, like I was really thankful that I liked the new protagonist, Noah.
Yeah. I'll also say, like, they did a really good job of setting stakes, like, very early. Like, at the beginning, you're like, oh, this is very sweet. Like, his whole goal is to just get an egg so that he can train his hawk.
Mm-hmm.
And then he, like, I mean, this is, like, the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But, like, he loses his egg.
That moment, by the way.
And it's like, you're crushed,
yes.
right?
Did you feel it?
Yeah, I felt, like, horrible
Oh
for him.
my
And then he's
gosh.
like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to go get another one. And he, like, sets off into the night to go get another one. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, I'm like, scared for him. And then the stakes get even higher because this clan comes in and starts, like,
Like
killing
the bad
them.
apes, basically.
The bad apes, yeah, like, just come in and start, like, killing people. And it's like, oh my gosh, oh my word, I'm so, like, nervous for him now. And, like, I care so much about this clan, even though we've, like, just met them.
Yeah. That moment when he loses his egg
Oh yeah.
was so it really, like, shocked me and was like, oh my gosh, I felt what he felt.
Yeah.
The horror, like
This CGI ape.
Yeah. Because his rite of passage thing is happening that morning, that next morning, and his dad's gonna be so disappointed and all this stuff. So they did such a good job of, like you said, setting the stakes of what this means and how much it matters to not only him but his family and his whole community.
Yeah.
And even the friends being like, "Oh, we'll wait till next year."
Yeah, we'll wait
it's
for
like,
you.
Oh my gosh. He's like, no, I can't have you wait. I'm going to go back out. And so it felt so motivated. They did such a good job of that. I thought the setup was fabulous.
Yeah.
And
I cared about, like, the world building. I cared about, the CGI. Normally, when something is, like, completely CGI, it really takes me out of it. And all I can think about is, like, oh, that's CGI, that's CGI.
Yeah.
But for this, I really was, more distracted by the world and the characters. So that was really cool that they were able to kind of, like, take me away from that.
Yeah. I mean, did you like the CGI? What did you think of the visual effects?
Like, overall, it was pretty good. I think I only noticed it a few times. Like, I don't know. There was this moment where one of the apes is, like, wearing something, and I kept looking at it because it looked, like, rendered.
It didn't, like, sit naturally or something?
Yeah, and I kept, like, kind of looking at that. But overall, like, very impressive.
Yeah, and this one is different because the other movies, from what I remember, there are consistently a lot of humans in the movie.
Yeah.
And so, you're cutting between ape and humans, CG ape and humans. But this one, it starts, and for the majority of it, just stays all apes carrying the story. And so I was a little worried about, man, the lack of humans. Am I gonna be able to connect to these CG characters? But the motion capture is so good, and even though it's not the same Andy Serkis, I believe his name, who did the motion capture for Caesar, even though he's not in it, I thought the other actors did a great job. Like, the technology is fantastic. The visual effects.
Was What a Workshop. What a Workshop. They did, like, Lord of the Rings and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was, like, Andy Serkis's whole tie as well.
Got it. Okay. So the same crew did it, basically.
I think so.
Yeah. But it was so well done. And the world rendering and all that.
Yeah. Well, and I looked up, you maybe already saw this too, but, like, the actors actually went to ape school for 6 weeks.
Interesting.
Which is a long time, 6 weeks. And they, like, learned how to be an ape. Like, like, walk like one.
Yeah.
They would, like, have crutches and would, like, walk like apes.
Yeah, I mean,
it's crazy.
It's just really, the whole CG, all that kind of stuff is really well done. I loved some of the characters, like the Raka character, who's the orangutan.
I loved him.
He was fantastic.
So great.
Yeah, and the two parts of the movie that really made me laugh out loud were two moments that he has, like, a little comedic thing. I don't want to give it away so you guys could enjoy it. But yeah, like, it was just he brought so much warmth to the story, I thought. And he's actually the one that kind of connects us back to the original reboots. Like, he's the one with the knowledge that's been passed down. And I think the last thing before we get into the reveal of our scores, I would say, is I just really felt from the beginning the premise was really strong, because he essentially loses his whole village. They get kidnapped, and then he loses some people really close to him, I'll just say. And so he has to go out now. Like, he's never left his little bubble, his little gated community, in a sense. And now in the beginning, when, you know, there's like this tunnel that he's afraid to go through, and then now he has to go cross into it.
Entering the new world.
And then he's on his own, and he starts to see like the destruction of the old skyscrapers that are left behind from the time of the humans, and all these things. And so it really gives you strong adventure vibes. And there's like a lot of wonder and discovery and excitement as he sets off on this adventure, and concern and fear. So it just does such a good job of setting up this new world, this new protagonist. He's very green and naive, and you're going to see him start to mature and learn as time goes on.
Yeah.
So I just loved all those things. And it made me, I think the best thing to say about this movie is that I am now excited about the rest of the trilogy of this set. So that was the thing that I was most worried about, was if this is
got your score wrong.
If this is a flop, right? If this is a flop, then, you know, the second and third one that's going to come after this are just going to be bombs. Like, no one's going to care.
Yeah.
You know, you're losing Caesar, you're losing like all these things that were integral in the first one, like the director that was successful. And so I thought, I was most excited that, man, I left this movie being like, yes, I am still in for the Planet of the Apes movies. I'm down. I can't wait for the next one.
Wow.
All that kind of stuff. And I'm glad that Noah delivered, and that I wasn't missing Caesar too much. So any last thoughts before we reveal? No? Okay. No. So you guessed that I was going to give it 3.5, and I gave it a 4.
Darn it. As you were talking about it, I was like, he gave it a 4.
Yeah, I was between a 3.5 and a 4, but I would say the most of the time I was at a 4. And then at some point in the second act, it does kind of get bogged down a little. It was a little long.
Yeah.
So, you know, but the ending and the whole last act, it brought it back in, and I was like, I'm down. I'm excited. And that's the thing I was most concerned about. So for you, I guess the 3.5. And yeah, Jamie,
you did it.
I got it right once. Yeah. Where's my trophy?
Oh,
where's my trophy?
Kayla's going to be so proud.
Yeah, my daughter, she's been, she's only 9, and she doesn't know any of these movies.
When
but
are you going to win?
She's like, Daddy, did you get Jamie's, score right? When are you going to get it right? Oh, so cute. She's going to be so proud of me. Oh. I'm going to be like dad of the week.
What's funny, though, is I also was between a 3.5 and a 4 the whole time.
Okay.
I was the same boat where I was like literally sitting here thinking about it, and I was like, should I give it a 4? And I'll tell you the reason I didn't give it a 4.
Okay, are we going to spoiler section now?
Yes.
Okay, spoiler section.
The reason I didn't give it a 4 is because the third act wasn't totally my favorite.
Okay, why? Interesting.
But I still really liked the movie. I don't want to say, like, I don't want to be like a hater. Mm-hmm. But I felt like the ending was a little bit long.
Okay.
And I don't know. It was difficult to tell sort of where the characters were at, if that makes sense. Because
like, especially when
mainly the human.
Yeah, she gets introduced. You're not really sure what her angle is, right?
And I still wasn't sure what her angle was by the end. Like, I got that, like, she believed that humans should, rule the planet again, I guess. But I also felt like she was, trying to be friends with Noah, and she liked, what's the orangutan's name again?
Raka.
Raka.
Yeah.
I felt like she was on board for their mission too. So I think I just got really confused about like what her motivation and what her goal was. And then I also got a little confused that he was upset that she flooded the vault, because like that was the whole plan, was to flood it. And like I don't understand why he exactly changed his mind, except maybe it was like when he's reading the book and he sees the apes in cages.
Yeah.
But he already knew about that.
He did.
He had already been told that was how they were.
Yeah.
So I guess, I don't know. I guess there was like a couple, like just maybe a little missing piece that got me a little off track. And so the third act felt a little messy for me. Maybe I wasn't reading between the lines enough.
No, interestingly, I was feeling that.
But it didn't bother you?
But I thought that as they unveiled more of who she is and her motivation, it actually made sense as I, would be in the next scene thinking back to the previous scene. Okay. I'll be like, oh, okay, I understand why. And
why'd she kill the guy?
I mean, she did that because he was going to basically rat on them. And her mission
was confused about that too. It didn't, because he sort of was threatening them. But then he sort of was oh, you're just going to lose.
Yeah, he said you're going to lose. But it was pretty clear that he was kind of giving her a last chance to join their side. And, like for her, I will say this. Let me ask you this. What did you think about her character overall by the end of the movie?
I like I said, I was confused by it. Because I think maybe it was just me making assumptions about her more towards the beginning, and then those assumptions were incorrect.
Yeah.
That could be it. But I felt overall just kind of confused about her. And then like she has like the gun behind her back, and I didn't understand that. And I was kind of just like, I feel like she really cares about Noah, but I felt like I was just really confused about her as a character.
Yeah.
Noah was clear. It was very like,
he's just like a really good guy. Good old ape.
Good old ape. He like all of his beats felt really good and really rewarding. And then her, I was just kind of like,
especially at the end when he finally gets to, kind of win the respect of the eagles and his father's eagle, and he had always been following the law, and then this moment when he realizes, you know what? I don't need to follow the
law
way.
Is bad.
Yeah, when the law is by a dictator who's taking advantage of his power and things like that.
I loved that line.
Yeah.
The law is bad.
Yeah, so it was such a good moment and makes you want to go break some law. No,
time to break the law.
Yeah, but so I agree. His arc was more clear and it felt satisfying. And in the end, when he's kind of taken his father's mantle and rebuilding the village, it feels like he's really matured and he's able to actually do that. So that was
her
great.
beats sometimes felt like they were more satisfying the plot rather than her character.
Okay, so let me make a defense of her character.
Yeah, maybe you can explain it to me because I was just confused a little bit.
And I think intentionally she was meant to be obscure. You didn't know her motivations. You didn't know what she was about. Yeah. And they unfolded that as time went on. They kept her being able to talk silent, a mystery. Yeah. And that, I think, was a little undersold. I mean, it was sold really well when one of the really funny moments is when Raka just like drops everything and just drops his jaw drops when she says something for the first time. But this virus had essentially made the human race almost extinct.
Like apes. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're almost non-existent. And the few that are left are like that nomad clan that was by the river. They're essentially like the way primitive apes are.
Yeah.
And, they're mute. They kind of like crawl around and stuff like that. And so she starts off like seeming like she's one of those kind of humans, and the apes actually look down on humans, right? As like inferior creatures, which is
they hint that she's not one of them because of her clothes. That was a huge hint for me. Yeah, her clothing was way too like modern and civilized looking.
Okay, I didn't really pick up on that because it was all dirty and stuff like that.
But she was wearing like jeans.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah. And but then she's able to speak, so it's like, oh wow, she's a special type of human, right? And later it makes sense because she must have been part of some kind of like in the end when it's revealed that there's another bunker of humans that are still advanced and intellectual and stuff like that, and they've been able to like keep the virus out, and hold on to their humanity.
Yeah.
And so she comes from that line, and she also must be immune because
She's able
out
to-
in the real world,
Yeah.
and yet she's not had the virus, degrade her, de-evolve her. And so she has that kind of backstory going on. And then when she wants to get into the fortress, into the vault, she is basically using Noah to get her into the vault, right? Because
Right.
you have to scale this crazy thing. She could never do it on her own. So it starts to become, and then when she gets the SAT key and all that kind of stuff, so that, she can bring it to the new fort bunker so that they can communicate with other human life that are out there, other survivors. It kind of makes sense because she's basically been the last surviving member of her community because the other ones got all wiped out.
Yeah.
And she has all that knowledge of the past and what humans are capable of all passed down to her. And she knows that if she can get into this vault, there is this really important piece that can help humanity kind of restart. And so she is, at the end of the day, a survivor. And that makes sense of all her motivations. Like, she's gone through all of this effort and all that stuff, scavenging and surviving. She doesn't trust anybody. She doesn't trust apes. And so I think, yes, she's built a connection that she didn't expect with Noah. So there's like a respect. But at the end of the day, her main motivation is the restoration of humanity.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really smart thing for her character.
Yeah.
I thought it sets up all the drama for the next movie. And, you have Proximus, who's like the kind of Caesar ape, all that kind of stuff. And, he's kind of like the villain. But really, by the end of the movie, you kind of wonder, is this girl, May, is she really the antagonist of the movie?
That's what I felt like. 'Cause it was sort of like, even like her whole fight with the other human, I think that's where I was a little bit thrown off. It's like she was so mad at him for like helping the apes, and he kept making very like interesting arguments about, well, this is their world now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess she was hiding from him the truth that there actually were still a lot of humans out there that could speak and read and whatnot.
Yeah. But she wouldn't have had any reason to trust him.
Right. So she wouldn't have told him because she didn't trust him.
Yeah.
In the moment, those moments were so confusing.
They were a little, that's why I felt the same way. But as her motivations get revealed, like when she gets to the little hard drive and takes it, it's clear like she was on her own mission.
Yeah.
And Noah was just a pawn, and that's why.
And it's clear why she had to destroy the vault.
Yeah, like she did not want the apes to get
right, and that was a good call.
Yeah. And so I think,
why did Noah get upset?
So that part's not as clear, but essentially when they open the vault doors from the inside, and then Proximus is there, and they're basically caught. She gets out of it by pulling a gun and killing another ape, right?
Right.
And I think for Noah, his whole thing is like, I keep trusting this human, but she keeps hiding these things from me. Like, he did not know that she had this weapon.
Right.
And he didn't know that
she keeps lying.
Yeah. He didn't know that she he didn't know the reason, like, because she just said, oh, I need to get something that's like a book, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't know what that is. But then she ends up producing this weapon that can kill an ape, like instantaneously, like magic, right? And so I think he just starts to really question, and then it does a really smart thing of Proximus being like, the one, you're a very clever ape. The one thing you have not learned is you cannot trust humans. I think that's the moment that he starts to be like, do I really trust her? And so he doesn't want whatever she had planned, that they had planned in the beginning. Like, he doesn't want her to go through with it, I think. Because he doesn't trust her motivations anymore. Right. And I think what this movie does really well, and all the ape movies do this really well, it's a story that speaks to more than just the action and the characters itself. It speaks to broader themes.
Like humanity.
Humanity, yeah. And this movie is really about a question of, can apes and humans really coexist? If apes have evolved to be on like humans' level of intelligence, could they coexist? And there's a whole philosophical like conflict between all the major characters. Like you have Proximus, who's like, you cannot trust humans. And then you have Raka, who's like, I have taken, I have the teachings of Caesar passed down, and he lived in a world where humans and apes coexisted and lived alongside each other, right? And so he's sympathetic towards humans, which is why he kind of takes in May in the beginning. So it's kind of like this ideological conflict. And for May, like, she is like,
humans should rule.
Yeah, humans should rule. And William H. Macy, like, he's like, no, this is their world now, so let's just serve them and be useful, right? So there's that ideological conflict. And then Noah is kind of like stuck in the middle. And he's like, well...
He's very much like discovering all of them.
Yeah. And for him, he just wants to keep his family and his clan safe.
Yeah.
But he is really caught in the crosshairs between all these different philosophies, and whose side is he going to be a part of? And so it just does such a good job of setting up these different ideals and the kind of philosophical differences.
Yeah.
And I found myself in the end being very confused, like, what am I rooting for in the next movie?
Yeah.
Do I want the next movie to be about humans kind of banding together and starting to take the world back?
Yeah.
And that's inevitably going to lead to another conflict between the apes and the humans.
Yeah.
And
you see like a little bit of a darkness too when Noah decides not to save the ape that killed his father. Like I remember like he had a whole moment to like save that ape. And I kept thinking, apes together, stronger together, stronger together. Like, is he going to do it? And then he just watches the ape like drown basically. And I was like, that was a choice that he made to not save that ape.
Oh, yeah. When he's caught in the tunnel and then, he's like drowning. And he does watch. You're right.
He just watches him die. Yeah. And that's the same one that killed his dad.
You're right.
So it's almost like he had a chance, an opportunity to save him and like be like what Raka says.
Yeah, be the champion of
or
this. Yeah.
Let him die because of what he did to his dad. And he chose to let him die. It's kind of a dark choice that he made.
I missed that. It was like, I missed that as a choice, reading that as a choice. He was just
watching him. He was just watching him die.
But I love that he did that because, like, it does give him some more areas to grow as a character in the future.
Yeah.
So that's good. I will say, one of the best things I liked about this movie was something that also was kind of a letdown because I think it was underdeveloped. So the whole, like, Raka saying... Well, first of all, it's a shame how quickly they just offed all these characters.
I know. Raka, like, they could have used him so much more.
Yeah,
but maybe he'll come back. No body, not dead.
I mean, hopefully, because, like, you don't see him die, right?
Yeah.
He just gets swept away.
He might be alive.
Yeah, I hope he does, because he was the best. I mean, he was probably my favorite character. He was fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think they have to bring him back. And the amount of knowledge he has is just too important. And him as a champion of, like, the old philosophy of, kind of, So he was great. And then them killing William H. Macy, like, William H. Macy's such a good actor. And I thought he could have still brought some stuff.
Yeah, I did not see that coming. There were so many moments that I like didn't see coming, but also like couldn't quite justify.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And then like, even Proximus getting killed. It was like, I mean, like that's fine. He beats the bad guy. But if he was around and with his kind of influence and charisma, the command he had of the other apes, I think it could have set up for more opportunities in the next movie,
Yeah.
So I don't know. But here's the part that I really liked. When Noah first meets Raka and Raka starts to explain to him like, oh, there's these writings and Caesar and what he believed in. But now this Proximus and these bad apes, they're twisting his words, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all this is a parallel to, I feel like, religion.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
And how you have like the original kind of prophet or whatever. So let's take Christianity, for example. You have like Jesus, right? And his words of good for humanity and all these kinds of things. And then you have the writings like the Bible and things like that. But then you also have people like, for example, the Crusades, all right, who twisted
I had the
those
exact same
things.
thought.
Yeah,
It's like, this is just the Crusades.
yeah, of twisting that and how
making it an army chant.
yeah,
thing.
that ideology being used for power and to oppress people, right? And so
Or colonization.
you're right, yeah.
Like missionaries being used as like a way to colonize.
Yeah. And so I think like the fact that you had the Proximus kind of doing that, and then he's kind of and his kind of minion saying like for Caesar, and you think that is referring back to the old Caesar, but it's Proximus taking Caesar's kind of legacy and his heritage and taking that name for himself, right? Proximus Caesar, and then all the ties to like the Roman Empire and their growth. So you really have like this battle between two ideologies, one of like the true religion and the true followers and the true prophets like Raqqa, and then like the false prophets, right, like Proximus.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was such a great setup, and then I don't think they fully fleshed that out. And
hopefully they will in the next one. That's why it's hard to.
I guess so.
Hard to judge.
And I kind of missed it, but I went back after I finished the movie and rewatched the scene where Proximus takes Noah out and overlooks the camp and says, "What do you see here?" And he says, "Oh, this is a kingdom, and I want to get into the vault because what if the humans get what's in the vault? They're going to be dangerous, and when humans can talk to each other, that's dangerous, right? And so I want to get rid of humans so that we don't go back in cages." And Proximus is so right, isn't he? Right? Because we know human nature. We know if the humans rise again, it's going to be, they can't coexist. They can't share the same world.
Yeah.
And so he ends up being right, but he has a dark side to him, right? Like he's accomplishing that goal by enslaving other apes.
Yeah.
So we know he's a bad guy, and the way he's enacting his vision for the world is wrong. But I thought that they should have, instead of just having him talk about him hating humanity and wanting to eradicate humanity, they should have had him actually like showing it.
Yeah.
And so even when they talk about May and how her people were killed, he says it kind of apologetically. Oh, like my apes, like they didn't know the value that they had.
Yeah.
So he's more about using the ingenuity and the cleverness of these apes. He's not really about like wanting to just kill them, right? He wants to become human.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they made him a little too sympathetic, I think, and not scary enough and not like.
No, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I think the more like charismatic you are as a leader, the more terrifying you are.
I mean, that's true, but
also I did kind of agree with some of his ideology, and I think that's also good.
Yeah, and I also like that too. And I thought that him trying to win Noah over to that philosophy, that's great. It really does feed into that broader theme that's being set up for the future. Can they share the same world together? Yeah.
What was up with the friend ape?
Which friend?
His friend.
Noah's friend?
Yeah.
The two friends. Oh, one was the girl that he likes.
Yeah.
And
the
then the other
guy
one.
who was like too scared to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, poor guy.
Yeah.
And then later he changes his mind. Was he the traitor?
No.
What was that then?
What traitor? There was a traitor?
Well, someone told them that they were opening the vault door.
Oh.
Because they were there waiting. So, like, did he betray? Like, that was a confusing beat.
You're right. Somebody did betray them, and I forget who it was.
I don't think they revealed who it was.
Was it his friend?
But I think it must have been his friend, because that was such a weird beat where he was like, "No, I'm too scared to go," and then you like see his face and he's all sad.
Yeah.
And then like literally the next scene,
he shows up.
He shows up and he's like, "I'm coming because you can't climb without me."
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, wait, what happened?
Yeah, which I thought was fine, but yeah, I forget who it was.
So he must have been the one to tell them,
maybe,
hey, this is what's going down.
Yeah, it didn't really bother me that much. It was like a plot device to have that conflict.
I guess I was thrown.
Yeah.
I don't know. There were a couple of like beats that I felt like were maybe missing or maybe not like threaded together as neatly as they could have been, but
yeah,
that's also me being nitpicky.
Yeah, because I think they unpack it well enough, and for me at the end, I really liked the complexity of the human character.
Right.
I liked the fact that they have these differences. I will say by the end of the movie, I love the way that it kind of sets us up for the future. I will say when May shows up at the new bunker and then it's answered by a human and she's Asian, and I'm like, the Asians survived. So I like that. But
my word.
No, but just the fact that, there is this kind of remnant of humanity. It really is going to be interesting to see where they go in the future.
Yeah.
And I just love the fact that... I want to know,
like, how they survived for these years, too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the fact that the Ape movies have some legs, because one thing I love about this franchise is that it is one of the true sci-fi franchises. To me, the best sci-fi movies are the ones where it's an idea about the future that speaks to our present world. And I think this does that. It all is taking place in the future, is sci-fi ideas, and that's kind of in the DNA of all of this. I think, I'm not sure about this, but I think the original writer of the Planet of the Apes movies is the guy who did the Twilight Zone TV show. And I love Twilight Zone. It was like really pure sci-fi. And, as much as I love, just action, sci-fi and all this kind of stuff, when it becomes more than that, but about the ideas behind them, that's when it's really sci-fi is at its best. And so I will lock in a 4.0.
Yeah.
I will challenge your rating.
I know.
Perhaps maybe it deserves a 4.0.
I am considering it. I don't know why. I was so torn between 3.5 and 4. And literally just went with my gut about.
You got the adventure aspect. You got a really likable protagonist. You got the world building. You got all these big ideas.
And the main reason I think I gave it 3.5 is because it's not a standalone. Which is funny because I love series.
Yeah.
It's just that this happens to be the 4th movie in a reboot.
But it's really the first of another reboot.
It really is like an original story if you think about it. Yeah.
4.0.
I'm so torn.
Say it with me, guys. 4.0.
I'm so torn. See, because if I change it now, I might change it back.
Okay. I mean, maybe then it's a rewatch candidate and you rewatch it in the future and you give it a 4.0 then.
If it's a rewatch, then it's got to be a 4, though. All right, you know what? I'm going to do it.
Oh!
The peer pressure worked for once.
You were enough on the border, and maybe...
I was enough on the border, and...
Maybe unpacking...
Talking more about her character did help. Yeah.
I don't think everybody loved her character.
Albert convinced me,
yes,
which means I have to convince him of something eventually.
You did.
He's so stubborn.
You convinced me of Naiad, my Naiad rating.
Did I?
You did.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
Well, that was a while ago.
Talked me into a 4.5. So there you have it. It's a great movie.
We agreed on a rating.
Yeah, definitely worth watching. I got my first guess right. Finally, I'm back on the board, or I'm on the board. Tell us what you guys thought. Hopefully you guys get a chance to watch this movie and enjoyed it as well, and are excited for what's to come.
Yeah.
Comment and follow.
Yep. Give us ideas.
Yeah. So we're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Letterboxd. And next week we will be reviewing Beetlejuice.
Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, Beetlejuice, because the first one, the original.
Which I have already seen. But
I have seen also.
Okay, we've both already seen it.
We are going to rewatch it, right?
We're going to rewatch it so that we can be prepared for the sequel.
Yes, because the sequel is coming in a couple weeks. So we will do an episode on the original Beetlejuice. So if you guys get a chance, watch it. Or if you've already seen it, join us for next Thursday so we can talk about that and get hyped for Beetlejuice.
Don't say it again. In a row. Say something else. There we go.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Kingdom of the Planet. Blank of the blank of the blank.
Yes, see you next Thursday.
Yep. See you next week.